This is Film Class, Week 7, Part 4. I mentioned the Muppets. I don't know if you guys know the Muppets. One of the greatest things about one of my favorite things about the Muppets is that being a Muppet is non-diegetic. What does that mean? It means that when I'm watching a Muppet movie and Kermit the Frog and Miss Piggy are hanging out with a real live person, I can tell who's a Muppet and who's a person, right? I'm like, that's a Muppet, that's a person. That's very easy, very easy. Kids, very easy for kids to go. That's a person, that's a Muppet. That's a person, that's a Muppet. Because they just look different. The Muppets are animals made of felt, and the human beings are human beings. So pretty straightforward. But what's cute about the Muppet movie is they don't know that. Kermit the Frog doesn't know. They live in a world where it's normal for a person to go into an office building and work with talking frogs, talking pigs, right? It's like a normal part of the world that they live in. This has an interesting effect in the Muppet movie, where, for example, Kermit the Frog goes into a bar, and Rolf the dog is playing at the piano, and there's human beings there, but you know. And so Kermit goes and talks to Rolf. Now, I know already, they don't know, but I know they're going to be great friends. Why? Because I know they're both Muppets. I can tell. They're the same kind of creature, but they don't know that. Kermit just thinks he's talking to some creature who's just like all the other creatures in Kermit's world. Kids love it because they know a little bit more than the characters, and so it's satisfying and fun because you sort of know what's going to happen before it happens. Like, you can tell just from looking around in a scene who might be buddies. Because they're both Muppets. There's a similar thing, and this is really an unfair thing to bring up, and I'm jumping a little bit, but I don't care. Sometimes when I watch a murder mystery on TV, I can fucking tell who did it. One of the ways you can tell who did it is they'll have a bunch of characters, and then one of the characters, like a minor character, some minor character, like some random cop that's not that big a deal, is played by a really good actor. And I go, why did they hire that very good actor to play this extremely small role? Because it's not a small role. In Act 3, it turns out that guy's the serial killer. And the reason they hired a good actor is he has to do a bunch of big acting just in the last 2 episodes when they realize it's fucking him. So the point is that there's things that I always want to remind you in your papers to talk about the relationship between the film and the audience. And these are some of the things that it's important to talk about between the what does the film do to the audience? Well, one of the things that Wizard of Oz does to the audience is it communicates the way characters feel by doing non-diegetic shit just for the audience, which is the musical that where everyone's singing, and also the color. And it's always important to think about those kinds of things. Yeah, and then we talked also about how does the movie get characters to like how does the movie makers get audience to like the character? Maybe if they dislike animals, they're bad. If they like animals, they're good. It's simple stuff. But movies are so mesmerizing and so beautiful and so fun that when you sit down in a movie theater, you turn your brain off and you disappear. And the whole point of film class is don't turn your brain off. Keep your brain on and notice the way the thing is being made. And if you pay attention to how it's made, you'll notice things in movies that other people won't notice, and you'll get more out of it, and you'll have a better life. I literally think that. I literally believe that is true. Because, life is short, and you gotta have fun, and the best way to have fun is to pay more attention to things. All right. Little kid just walked by me, but I think he's got parents. He's probably fun. Okay. So let's talk about some other things. Yeah, all right. The witches. This movie has its own mythology, its own bizarre mythology. The witch, the Wicked Witch, looks just like you think a Wicked Witch would. It's a very classic witch design with a hat with a point, and she's green, and she cackles, and she has evil fingernails, and she's ugly. In fact, there's a kind of upsetting line in the movie that doesn't play very well nowadays. But she's only evil because she's ugly. That is a theory that goes back hundreds of years. But if you think about it, it's like pretty offensive, so we don't really do it now anymore, although you'll see it pop up in Shakespeare and other places. But it's the idea that, if God made you ugly on the outside, it's a way of symbolizing that you're ugly on the inside. We don't think like that anymore because holy shit, is that mean, right? I mean, we don't think that people who are born with a deformity are somehow cursed by God, but they did think that for a long time. Shakespeare's Richard III, for example, is a hunchback, and it's suggested that it should be obvious how evil he is because he is a hunchback. Obviously, it's offensive to sort of judge people's interior states based on what they look like. And this kind of thing gets used to justify slavery and all kinds of shitty things. So people go, oh, well, God cursed, certain people with dark skin because they're supposed to be slaves, is like shit they said, during America's Confederacy when they had slaves and just terrible people. Anyway, but Glinda, the good witch who we like, tells Dorothy, she's like, oh, you're a witch? And she's like, oh, only ugly the wicked witch of the West and the East are ugly because they're bad, but I'm beautiful because I'm Glinda the good witch. So it's a little, anyway, it's not a logic that you want to use in your day-to-day life, but it's worth pointing out that in the magical fairy, it's common in fairy tales. Although the opposite is also common in fairy tales, where you have creatures that are ugly, and the lesson is don't judge people by appearances. And modern day fairy tales often spend a lot of time reversing this, where Shrek is very ugly looking, but he's a nice guy, and the Hunchback of Notre Dame is ugly looking, but he's a really nice guy. Yeah. But it's something it's worth thinking about, the relationship between external beauty and goodness in the movies. The way movies will make characters ugly in order to let you know that they are bad people, and that just causes all kinds of problems in the real world. So probably don't do that anymore. Okay, cool. I don't really want to say this, but I'm going to say this lightning fast anyway. I think it's interesting that the bad witches are the East and the West, and the good witches are the North, and you never see the good witch of the South. But the idea is that the witch of the North is good, and the East and the West are bad. That's what we know. I think it's interesting that notice that you can go East and West forever, but when you go north, at some point, you stop going north and you start going south, right? You can circle the globe and just you can go east forever, never stop going east. You can go west forever, never stop going west, right? But if you go north, once you hit the North Pole and you keep coming around, you're not going north anymore. Now you're going south. And now you're going north. And now you're going south. But east. So there's something interesting about the fact that evil in this movie is the one that goes forever, and good is the poles, the top and the bottom of the planet. I don't know. I don't have a lot to say. I don't know why I wrote that down. I feel kind of stupid. Okay. The hell I just wrote something. Oh, Munchkin Land is amazing. It's completely bonkers and completely crazy. It is, and also interestingly, they're good, even though the actors are played by little people, but the characters are supposed to be good. So already that suggests something more complicated than Glinda's, sort of traditional physical beauty equals goodness. Like that's sketchy. But the Munchkins are pretty cool. They're very fun and they're very interesting and they're very bonkers. They're also set up like children. They're sort of like a whole, they seem like little kids. They dress and act in these like odd little kid ways, and they do like, the sort of the dances, the lollipop guild, right? Who eats lollipops? Little kids mostly. We even see, in a callback to Auntie M's little chicks in the incubator that aren't going to live, we see a bunch of munchkins cracking out of eggs, just in case that scene wasn't crazy enough that we had to watch munchkins being born. Which is the movie's completely bonkers, and I kind of love it. But they're these little strange, sort of grotesque little children. This is an important thing that we're going to talk about more, but I want you to notice one of the most interesting things about The Wizard of Oz is that in The Wizard of Oz, men are fucking useless, and all the power is with women. This is one of the best things about The Wizard of Oz. Dorothy's uncle seems completely useless against Miss Gulch. Actually, I'll talk more about this later. But what I want to introduce is the idea that the women are powerful. There are 3 witches. They're all women. They're the most powerful characters in the movie. Dorothy is a woman. She's an incredibly powerful character. And the Munchkins are set up as children. So this is very much like the power of women and children. And that the men in this movie are completely fucking useless. Okay, this is going pretty good. We're going to talk more about that as we go. But I just want to that idea appears in that opening scene with the idea of the witches. Okay, so Dorothy meets the Scarecrow. Yeah, all right. So Dorothy meets the Scarecrow, and it's like they have songs about be happy with what you have and who you are. And she picks up these people, right? She meets the Scarecrow, and she meets the Tin Man, and she meets the Cowardly Lion. And these are her companions. She helps them. They help her a little, but they're not they're not as they're weaker. The men in this movie are sort of goofy, and they help out a little. The uncle stands up to Miss Gulch a little when he's he makes these jokes as she's coming in the house. And the Scarecrow and the Cowardly Lion and the Tin Man, they help, but really this is a movie about women, and it's one of the things that fits into a pattern in the class. The all of Unit 3 is about powerful women. So we'll talk more about that then. I'll see you guys in the next video.